ongoing alleged kidnapping case against the 53 struggle military veterans has once again put the spotlight on the dire circumstances of thousands of South Africa's freedom fighters and the failure of the state to meet its obligations to recognize, honor and compensate them for their sacrifices in the country's democratization.
Almost 30 years now after the democratic dispensation, you still have a very huge amount of veterans, struggle liberation war veterans, who have not been taken in for counseling.
I took a stand to say, but it doesn't help me because this thing is frustrating my daughter. She is asking me, when are you paying? Because at school they are asking for the school fees.
In the military veterans community, we are the worst. We are the worst hard done by.
In 1976, 24-year-old Obima Bena was forced to go into exile after hearing the security branch was looking for him.
My eldest daughter was only 18 months old then. And the next time I was to see her was when she was 15 years old, and that was in the UK. My mother passed on, I think, around 1983. And I didn't know until 1987 about her passing on. And I didn't know partly, not only because of the exile per se. I think I would have known. But the problem was that during that time I was incarcerated at Quatro. Quatro was this notorious prison that was supposed to be an ANC prison in Angola, which was supposed to be dealing with agents of the apartheid regime in the ANC who had infiltrated the ANC. And the reverse was true, because just about anybody that I know of was incarcerated in that place.
In exile, he encountered the rush of June 16 exiles leaving South Africa with only the clothes on their backs.
When we got into exile, yes, we got exposed to some training, military and political training, but also the life in the camps was not a bed of roses. It was really tough. On our return, what compounded the needs of veterans was the fact that most of them were just kids when they went into exile.
He says he headed a first group of 7 that built the ANC in Angola.
When we got there was no ANC office in Angola. There was no ANC camp. There was no training facility. Contrary to what we were told when we were leaving Swaziland. Because when we were leaving Swaziland, we were told that once we get there, we'll train for 3 months. In 3 months' time, we'll be fighting it out with the Boers in the streets of Soweto with with AK-47s. When we got there was nothing, absolutely nothing. That the Angolans were in the process of returning from exile. Nothing was in order at the time. So we're driven through the gate, we're taken to a place where there was a barrack. And then we're told, okay, comrades, this is where you're going to be staying. And then we'll see you. They left.
He says of the 16 years he spent in exile, 8 were as a prisoner in Quatro.
Almost 30 years now after the democratic dispensation, you still have a very huge amount of veterans, struggle liberation war veterans, who have not been taken in for counseling.
Mabena is part of the advisory council to the Department of Military Veterans.
The lot of your liberation struggle veterans has been deteriorating from bad to worse. So much so there are instances where when some of our guys, passed on, we had to go around the communities begging for some donations to bury these people. And these are people who were prepared to lay down their lives so that this country could be transformed to what it is struggling to become now, because sadly enough, it is anything but what we were fighting for.
He says the Military Veterans Act of 2011, which sets aside benefits that veterans are entitled to, has not been adhered to by the Department of Military Veterans.
The biggest injustice is the failure on the part of the powers that be to give effect to the provisions of the Act. Because just about everything that is provided for in the Act still needs to see the light of day. When I left Quattro, the first thing that I did when I got to Zambia, I started seeking some counseling. And when I reached the UK, of my own volition, nobody was assisting me in that. Even upon my return to South Africa, I did that myself. But many of my comrades, unfortunately, didn't do that.
He insists that the alleged kidnapping of state officials last year is a misrepresentation.
When we got there, the president was nowhere to be found. He sent the late minister in the president's office, Jackson Mthembu, to come and address us. And we told him, no, look, you guys know we are here to see your boss, not you. And we are not leaving this place until he talks to us. And then eventually some compromise was reached whereby we could have a virtual with him, sitting in his office and talking to him and telling him what we were about.
Pitso Hlasa joined the Azanian People's Liberation Army in 1986 as a recruit. He is at the forefront of the fight for recognition in democratic South Africa.
Military veteran in my own right. I joined the army in 1986. I joined Azanla inside the country at the time, which most people say it's a myth, but it's true. It's not a figmentation of our imagination. It is true. I joined Azanla in Qwaqwa Mountains, but for some reasons, because of I was still a recruit at the time, we had to retreat. I will not have all the facts, but as I was told that we were spotted by the security system, and we had to leave, and then we went to Botswana. In Botswana, I stayed in Gaborone. Gaborone, I stayed in Tukwe, and I operated under the name of Tisetso Phuthi at the time when I was in exile in Botswana. The two older liberation movements were integrated into the new SANDF. We as Azanla MVA, or Azanla as the Liberation Army, we did not integrate due to political positions of ASAPO, not to participate in the negotiated settlement. If you remember the Captain Park's talks, ASAPO was not there. And I can say in the military veterans community, we are the West, we are the West hard done by. It took the Department of Military Veterans, I think almost from 2013 until 2021 to recognize us as an association. Eventually, we were recognized last year. We got our recognition letter that states, yes, Azanla MVA is recognized, even though we are founder members of SANVA, which is the umbrella body of the whole military veterans community in the country. This department is centered only in one province, which is Gauteng, and we have military veterans across 9 provinces. I can imagine a person who is coming from Western Cape in Paarl, whose matters are not attended to, and he wants to contact the department. How difficult is for that person to come to Gauteng? So it is not easy. I think the department needs to do better. We have the provincial coordinators, but they are as good as not being there. because of they cannot give you a satisfactory answer when you want to know what is happening with whatever application. I think there is one benefit that has been a cry for everybody. That is the military pension benefit. Department has not yet implemented this. I heard a month or so, President Cyril Ramaphosa addressing the parliament saying that from the 1st of April going onwards, forward, the military veterans will be getting pension. I think he was ill-advised or was deliberately misled. Because of, as I'm talking to you now, there is a message in the social media that is circulating, a Department of Military Veterans saying, no, there is nothing like that. It's a process in action. They've not activated that. Military veterans, until today, they are still struggling. We still have people who are not in the military veterans database up to today. And it's not their own making, it's the making of the system. It's the system that is failing them. So do we expect those people to celebrate Freedom Day? What is it that they're going to celebrate? When there are people who are living large out there, who are not even part and parcel of the struggle, but because of their connections with so and so, they are living large, better than those that who participated in the struggle. I'm not saying that those that participated in the struggle are unique. No, they're not unique, but at least there must be some sense of respect.
He's concerned about the verification criteria for veterans, which he believes lacks credibility.
Let them leave these matters to commanders on the ground. The commanders on the ground, they will tell them that these are the people that we have trained. They won't know. They won't know.
At the book launch of some of the veterans' biographies hosted by the Department of Military Veterans, we met Mosia Lebone, whose time in exile inspired the writing of his biography.
Because of my involvement in Alexandra Township in organizing the uprising in Alex, I was forced to leave the country. I then went to Swaziland, then Mozambique, and then I stayed for a very long time in Angola. I trained, my military training, most of it, actually all of it, I did it in Angola. Then when I finished in Angola, I before I finished, I was taken to study politics, Marxism-Leninism, at a party school in what is now, it doesn't exist any longer, East Germany. DMV has been paralyzed by internal issues of management, leadership, and others. But when it comes to this particular project, I really, really thank them for that, because it's so expensive to produce these books. Today, the Director General says, because this, as you can see, is endorsed by the Military Veterans Department, they are going to help us as writers to launch these books in our communities.
Even after the late 1980s, many youth were still going to exile to enlist in the liberation struggle. We visited Mxolisi Sithole, a liberation veteran who lives in Alexander Township. He explains how he left for exile without telling his family.
I didn't tell my siblings to say I'm now leaving, but we were attending some. It was a play. We were doing a play after school, after hours. Then I said to them, we are going to be doing a play, but we are having a trip. So I'll be coming back late. We were told not to tell, because if you can leave information, the likelihood that you'll be arrested, it's very easy.
His perilous night journey to cross the border at Lubatsi ended with his arrest.
We were told that they are arresting us because we have entered into their country illegally. We don't have papers. And they will keep us for 72 hours. After that, they will send us back to South Africa.
He says they persuaded them to give them permission to go to Zambia.
There was a plane from South Africa. It landed there. It in fact did not landed. It just dropped shell before it even reached, and it went back. But fortunately, there was no one inside the eating area, so no one was harmed. It's only people were just injured.
He says he was sent to Uganda for training where he encountered suspicion within the camp.
There was one instructor. He used to, someone, he likes us. And then he went to an extent of teaching us how to disassemble the AK and to assemble it. Before we even started training, it's fine. Now, it happened while we were now have to start the training. They asked the instructor who can try and disassemble the AK. Innocently so, I raised up my hand to say I can try. I did it the right way. I was suspected of being an enemy agent. Yes. Then I was told that I must go and write a biography of myself. We did that, but we were kept under surveillance to say these are. And then later, that instructor rectified that because he said to them, no, I'm the one who taught them how to assemble and disassemble the AK. And then it was off. Because if he didn't explain that, we will be maybe arrested or killed, because those are the things that happened.
Like many of his cadres, he missed out on much of his schooling and received very little in the way of reintegration into society.
The United High Commission for Refugee here in South Africa, and then they've said when you arrive, you must report to their offices so that you can get money to sustain you while you are waiting to be integrated. But it didn't went like they said. Some got that money, some didn't. When we went there, we were told the money is finished. We never received anything. People were called for integration, and I was left behind. And then I started to have questions to say, but what is happening? But well, I said, maybe they will call me because some are still not integrated.
He says he spent futile years pleading with the Department of Military Veterans for financial assistance for his daughter's education, which they gave, but eventually withdrew.
They keep on saying, no, you must go to school and get, they said I must go to school and get the account number and bring it back to them. I did that. And after doing that, I wait for a while to check what is the problem. Still, they didn't pay. It was 2019, it's not paid. 2020. And then I took a stand to say, but it doesn't help me because this thing is frustrating my daughter. She is asking me, when are you paying? Because at school they are asking for the school fees. And I cannot say to her, the people of DMV didn't pay. And I took a decision to say, I'm no longer going to go after them because they've proven to me to say they are not prepared.
He says he's angry that veterans from the Bantustans and the South African Defence Force receive benefits from the state while Liberation War veterans struggle to get them. At a launch of biographies, we also met Irene Polweni, the Director General of the Department of Military Veterans, herself a military veteran. We asked her what criteria is used to define a war veteran in South Africa.
In terms of our Act 18 of 2011, a military veteran is a former member of statutory forces that have served in the country or outside of our country within the liberation armies, and then others come back before 1993. The period is from 1960 to 1993.
We asked her why former South African and TBVC states veteran soldiers have easier access to benefits than Liberation War veterans do.
As compared to the SA Individual, which we have the information already in the system, which migrates quickly to other systems. Now, with the non-statutory forces, we have to ensure that they go through a process of verification, be registered on our database, and they can be able to benefit from our services. And it's quite a mammoth task, and we are trying to do that because there's a second round now of the database process, which was also established through the Presidential Task Team.
But 28 years later, the database hasn't been corrected. Why? She says her department has introduced new IT systems to address inefficiencies and changes to the Act to cover the veterans' needs. The 2020 protest by members of the Liberation Struggle War Veterans Organization led to the establishment of the Presidential Task Team, which emerged with the consensus document on the way forward. But this organization's legal representative says they don't agree with the proposed amount for compensation.
First and foremost, the understanding is that when democracy started or when apartheid came to an end, there had to be reparations that were paid to military veterans that physically went to fight for the freedom of the country. So that is the first and biggest claim that they have. And we understand that in as much as the claim today in 2022 is worth 4 million rands per person, that claim, had the state paid it back in 1994, it was going to be barely 500,000 rands.
Regarding the case of the 53 kidnapping accused, they believe the state doesn't have a winnable case against them.
The case was postponed to the 1st of February for the state to give us disclosure. The state indeed has given us disclosure, and we postponed the matter to the 17th of May for outcomes on the disclosure, on the representations that we're going to make in the interim. We have sat with the state and we informed them that after having read the record, the docket that they provided to us, there is, in many instances, almost 99.9% of the cases, no evidence to sustain any case against any one of them. So therefore, on that basis, the charges must be withdrawn. So we're going to be making representations for the charges to be withdrawn. In the docket, without going into detail simply because the matter is still pending before the courts, we have got statements of the people that alleged they were held there without their consent. And we also have got pictures as well as video footage that shows what transpired. Now, when you look at the video footage, it's not a complete recording of what really transpired. And when you look at the statements that have been made, it's not a statement of each and every person that was allegedly there when the event took place. Now, you don't see from the statements as well as from the video footage the same story. You don't have a same scenario that is being painted by both the statements and the video footage. And it's on that basis that we're saying there is no court that will come to a conclusion that says our clients must be found guilty for the offenses that they're charged with.
The National Prosecuting Authority says it's unable to comment in this program as they are waiting for the accused to make representations set for the 20th of April. A generation that swore to achieve political freedom in their lifetime sits and waits for its state to provide the most basic of their needs. Trained in warfare but patient enough to wait close to 30 years for someone to hear their cry. Another ticking time bomb in a country that has many ticking time bombs.